Hello, welcome. As you can see, we've got quite the assortment of Juno-like devices, or in fact, modern reissues. And I thought it could be fun to do a quick, totally non-scientific, just fun video where they're all together before I may disperse some of these. I'm not sure. I don't need all of these 106 sounds. In most cases, these are things I've collected over the years. The 106 itself, I've had probably for 15 years. Things like the boutiques I've come across via trades or just Craigslist deals, things just to try them. And the Nymphes is something I bought secondhand as well because I like the idea of the form factor and the sounds I had heard. So, we're not going to do anything scientific. It's not going to be oscilloscopes and shapes and discrete parameters being tested between each one. Mostly, this is an excuse for me to get all these in one video before I may not keep all of them. Just because why do you need so many 106-like devices in a small room? So anyway, they all do very similar things, somewhat differently. Pros and cons I'll go over a little later because that's kind of fun. But, in general, they sound similar to each other. But my Juno-106 probably doesn't even sound like another Juno-106 exactly, simply because of calibration issues over time or different issues that can crop up and tolerance differences in components in these old vintage analog items. I know, for instance, I need to calibrate mine. My voices all work, but one of them seems just a touch off, so I want to touch that up. But in general, they sound pretty similar and can make a similar range of sounds depending on how you program them. So let's just start. This is a patch I made to kind of show off the similarity a little bit. No chorus on this, which we'll get into later, but here's the original Juno-106. Just a lovely F major chord because why get complicated? Now, this is the 106, sorry, the JU-06A. I'm going to screw up these names a lot. So again, 106, 06A. You can see they're very, very, very similar. And again, fader tolerance difference. The length of the faders are different. It's hard to dial in the exact same sound, but that's pretty close. So then we'll switch over. I've got the three of these guys going through the key step via a MIDI box, and the Juno-106 just going direct. But now we've got the 06 original boutique version. Again, pretty close. Some slight difference. We can even switch between the 06 and the 06A. Very, very close, right? And now I think the 06 might have a bit of delay on it that I forgot to turn off, but that's fine. And then the Nymphes. The Nymphes in this patch sounds a bit grittier than these two, but this guy's got a bit of grit to it as well. Again, tolerance difference on faders, and just dialing in that exact right difference between the cutoff frequency and things like the keyboard tracking can be a little tricky, but they're all very close in the same ballpark, which is pretty cool. Of all the devices here, the 06 original boutique is probably the closest attempt. It's just trying to do the Juno. That's all it's trying to do, except it's got a couple additional modern features. The 06A has a bit of a Juno-60 setup in there as well, so you get things like the ARP, and they ditch the pitch and mod wheel. So there's a bit more there in terms of sonic capability. And then the Nymphes, I'm not going to smack things around. The Nymphes is its own beast in a way. It's a 6-voice analog poly, so it immediately lends itself to Juno comparisons. But I've tried it comparatively with my Korg Poly 6, and you can dial in tones like that pretty well too. So there's a lot going on under the hood there, especially when you factor in 2 envelopes and 2 LFOs. So there's a bit of sonic variety you can get a hold of there. But in general, they all do a pretty good job of Juno-like sounds. The elephant in the room is obviously the chorus, which is a lovely sought-after thing. So let's turn the chorus on. Juno-106, chorus mode 1. Here's the 06A, chorus mode 1. Just nice, gives it a bit of thickness, a bit of movement. We'll do the same. 06A. I think, like I said, it might have a bit of delay on it by accident. But yeah, that chorus, there you go. So now the Nymphes is at a disadvantage here because it does not have a chorus. It has a built-in reverb that people mostly don't like. I don't mind it. I think I would prefer a chorus, certainly, because I've got outboard reverbs and things, and the reverb is kind of interesting to dial in. Any effect to me is great to have on a small unit like that because the form factor is perfect for portable setups. But if you want it to kind of nail this sound, you need to bring in an external chorus. And I'm not going for accuracy here. I'm just trying to give it something to beef it up. So I've just got the ubiquitous Zoom MS-70 CDR over there, and I've got it set to kind of a chorus, like a Boss style chorus. So we'll turn that on, and now we've got so again, it's in the ballpark. I would say that chorus I could dial in. I could probably find one on the Zoom that is closer to the Juno chorus, but I didn't really try very hard. I just looked for something that's kind of got that old school analog chorus pedal sound and slapped it on there, and I figure it's got a CE5 style chorus in there, which is probably the closest I'm going to find, but I didn't try very hard. Again, the point of this video is not to show, look how exact these all are, because I don't find that interesting, and other people have done better jobs of this. You can watch Jorb's video on the Nymphes and Juno-106 comparison to get a much better breakdown of how these are similar or different. I'm more interested in the fact that I accidentally have 4 things that do a Juno-106 type sound, and why not compare them before maybe I don't have all of them again. I don't need all of these things, so they're probably not all going to stay here, but let's have fun while they're here. So in that spirit, let's look at Polyphony. So obviously the 106, 6-voice polyphony. So let's see. I'm going to turn the choruses off again just to keep this fair. So let's see, I'll do 6 notes. Now when I go to do a 7th, you just don't hear it. It doesn't do it. So you get 6, you can't add that 7th. But you get 6 notes polyphony, which is great. Now, when I go to, let's say, the 06A, you're capped out at 4, but it steals from each other. So let's start with 4. We got 4, now we'll start adding more. You can see as I add more and more, it just gets higher and higher. It steals from the range. It loses its low end because it takes the notes that I did earliest. I wonder if there's a setting, there might be, that you can change that. We'll do the same with the original 06. You can see it loses the bass as I go up higher in the octave, which is interesting. I don't mind that, actually. It means that you could continue playing and you're just kind of stealing from itself. I don't know that there's ever a scenario with the original 106 that I'd need that 7th finger at once, but maybe if you've got your release settings set in a certain way and things might get interesting. Conversely, the Nymphes 6-voice polyphony as well, just like the 106, but it does it a little differently. You can hear it allows me to add that 7th note, but it's just stealing from within itself. So again, there may be settings that I haven't looked into as to where and what note it takes first. But if you're getting into something that requires 7 notes of polyphony, or that 7th note added, you're not going to run out. It'll just take from it. So it's an interesting variation. They've all got certain play modes as well, like unison, which can beef it up quite nicely if I hit both there. Let's turn it on the 06A. There we go. Make sure I'm on the right MIDI channel. This guy's got the chorus on, so it's cheating. Again, little tolerance differences, quite a little bit of sound difference there. We can go to the Nymphes as well, get that. Use the menu here to go through the unison modes. There are 2 unison modes on the Nymphes. This is the other mode. Just different ways they combine the notes, I believe, the detune. The Nymphes also has more modes, though. It has a tri, a duo, mono, and a chord mode, which is kind of cool. So there's a bit more option there, which we can get into later in the pros and cons. And the 06 original has the unison, mono, and polyphonic mode as well. So I'm not going to get into that too much, but you can really beef up, thicken up your lead line if that's what you want in any of these, and they all, they hit the ballpark. Let's talk extra features. Okay, so we know the classic Juno, you get the chorus, you got second mode of the chorus. You've got all your patch storage options. You've got a really great layout of fader kind of per function. But not a lot of like extra bells and whistles. There's no ARP, there's no other effects. There's only certain other modes and things. Now, when we get into it, the 06, the first boutique recreation of the 106, it's got your chorus, but you can hear that delay I accidentally left on. So there already is a bonus. It's got 2 chorus modes, but I believe, just like some of the other recreations of the Juno, you can actually have both chorus modes on at once, which the 106 I believe doesn't do, or at least mine doesn't, but I think the 60 could do that. So that's something that these newer Junos can do. It's also got MIDI in and out, USB power, and mini output jacks. That's something I personally don't like, is the USB micro as a power source. I find it finicky. The mini output jacks, I don't know. I don't necessarily trust the ins and outs on the boutiques as much as I would like to, but they're there. The 06 also has the pitch and mod, which you can also control. I believe you can control portamento that way as well via one of the submenus. But yeah, it's pretty useful. But if you have a keyboard controller, you don't need that. So that's something to be said for that. 06A gets interesting because it has the chorus modes like we discussed. You can put the double chorus on. It has the polyphony modes that we already demonstrated, and it has a delay as well that I won't set up now. I kind of forget how to do it, but it also has hold function. So there you go. I can play with the chorus while I've got the hold function on. You can hear. Also, the hold function can be used in conjunction with a chord mode, or there is a chord mode in general. It's also an ARP. So there you go. I've got the ARP. Slow down the tempo, increase the range. This is going down. Simple modes, no random or anything like that, but it's very fun to use with the ARP and the hold function. So you get a little bonus there. Similar idea to the 06. Mini controllers or mini jacks, mini micro USB, mini ins and outs, but then full-size MIDI, which is always great to see. Both of them as well, I should say. Sequencer. Do I use the onboard sequencer? No. I have Synths Deluge. I use that. So I don't know that the onboard sequencer would be much of a use for me, but if you need that 16-step sequencer, there might be more on this guy, I can't remember. But if you need a sequencer, they've got it. This guy's got the ARP. Also, though, the real weapon up its sleeve, aside from the ARP, is the 60-106 slider. So I can toggle that, toggle switch. I can, now I'm into a separate bank of, I got the ARP on. Nice fat bass from the Juno-60. So you can toggle that, and now I'm back to the Juno-106. So there's a lot of firepower in there for sound design and retro kind of analog style voicings. The Nymphes is its own beast entirely. So like I said, you've got things like the onboard reverb. Let me switch to that. I'll pump it up. Depending on how you have it set, it can get a little haywire. Mono reverb, which is an interesting choice. The whole thing is mono, so that's just something that people online like to berate because the reverb is only so useful. But hey, any effect to me is a bonus. Do I wish it were a chorus or delay? Certainly. There's a second LFO, so you can bring that in to do things like, let's set the range pretty high. We'll leave it on triangle, and let's bring in the noise using the LFO 2. So that doesn't affect anything else that was hit on LFO 1. This is its own thing. It's kind of fun. Anyway, just give some more sound design options. Also, the turn that LFO off, but the envelopes, you get the envelope for pitch and amp envelopes are separately controlled. So you can have a little more control in that way as well. There are all kinds of other things under the hood there. And again, some bonuses to me: full-size output jack, giant USB port for power that, whether you like USB power or not, that's up to you. There can be some noise issues if you're using a computer with it, but it's got that chunky kind of printer style USB connection. Mini MIDI jack, which you need an adapter for, but that's fine. They're starting to become ubiquitous. I've got a bunch of those all over the place. So the Nymphes, it's got some interesting options. You can do a lot with it. Some people don't like the screenless kind of shift menu. I've gotten quite used to it. I find it kind of nice to get into. It doesn't bother me much at all. Once you kind of figure it out, it becomes second nature. Okay, let's get into the pros and cons of these guys. So, not really a sound heavy video. I hope that's okay. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just trying to talk about these units before some of them don't stick around. Pros and cons. Juno-106, classic, absolute classic. They sound great to this day. If they've been well maintained, you're in for just perfect sounding classic machine. But maintenance is key on these old analog devices. In my case, I've been pretty lucky that most of my voices are fine. I haven't replaced them. I did do the acetone bath trick on 2 of them to remove the coating that Roland put on the factory chips when they were released, because those heat up and then they start to get wonky over time. The good news with these are that people have stepped up and started making new voice chips. Analog Renaissance and a couple others, I think you can get them. It'll cost you maybe $300-$400 to get the replacement set. I'm not sure installation on top of that, depending on if you can do it yourself, solder and desolder, or more specifically, that's a bit tricky. But it's an option. The MIDI implementation on this is very limited because it's one of the first home synths, I believe, to have MIDI, just kind of note on off. I don't think you're going to get control over any of the sliders or things like that, but it's there, bonus. Nice amount of keys, good size. So you get a lot for your dollar, except that dollar is going up every year. So these things are starting to cost more and more, which is why I don't really take this out anymore. It kind of stays in the studio. I don't necessarily want to gig with it and worry about it. So that brings us to pros and cons of the Boutique series. Specifically, we'll go with the little guy, the 06. Pros of that one: you get the Juno sound that you wanted. It sounds good. Sorry, that's the Nymphes, I think. Yeah, okay, here we go, because I left a delay on. I know which one's which. So you get the Juno-esque sound in a small form factor. Very portable, very light, very easy to throw on a portable rig. It does what it says on the tin. It sounds like a Juno-106 to a certain degree. I know purists will say you'll never beat the real thing, which I don't care. That's fine. You can do a video on that. It's close. It's in the ballpark. That's what I'm talking about. Getting in the ballpark, and these all get you in that ballpark. Pros on this one: cheaper too. You're probably likely to find this guy secondhand, much cheaper than you would this. Certainly much cheaper than the 106. I think in Canada these guys go for around $350 on the used market. And it's got a couple bonus features like the delay and the sequencer. It's got your pitch and mod wheel if you need that. And it's cheaper than any of the other ones. So that's kind of the one I'll keep bidding on. It's a little cheaper. It's cheaper. You could probably get one for a decent price if you need the Juno sound and you're not looking for a plug-in and you're not willing to spend, say, the $500 you might need to get one of these, and certainly the $2,000 you might need to get one of these. You can probably get one of these for within a smaller budget. So bonus. Now, the 06A is probably currently, if you're looking for Juno, this is probably the pinnacle of modern Juno recreation in a small form factor, because that's exactly what it's trying to do. You get your Juno-106, you get the Juno-60, you get the ARP, you get chorus modes, delay, sequencer, all kinds of the features that you'd want from the Juno-106 and the Juno-60. It looks great too. I actually really prefer the aesthetic of this one to this one. The original boutique line, I've never really enjoyed the look of them. These kind of transparent buttons and the pitch and mod wheel, the light up faders, never really did it for me. Whereas these chunky kind of old school Roland-esque looking buttons work for me. And the faders on these two boutiques, to me, are the most usable in the boutique line in terms of the older ones, at least. I haven't tried a lot of the newer ones, but the JP-08 faders were just so tiny. And the knobs on some of the other ones, very tiny as well. So these faders have a good enough range, I think. And again, yeah, you get some of that. You get bonus features. You're going to pay a little more compared to that one. On the used market in Canada at the moment, these go for like $500, $450, $500. New there, I think they're a little more than that. But, you know, if you want small form factor, lots of options, Juno-60 and 106 with an ARP, this is kind of where you're going to go if you want to throw that on a small portable rig. Especially if maybe you have a Juno-106 and you don't want to take it out gigging, but you need that sound set for your show. Which takes us, as I speed through, talking faster and faster, to the Nymphes, which to me is on my portable rig. Of all these units, like I said, I don't take the Juno-6, 106, or the Poly 6 for that matter, out anymore on live shows. They're big. I'm trying to stay. My whole rig is something this big with the Deluge controlling it. So to me, the Nymphes form factor is one of the biggest pros I can give it. It's so tiny, so sleek, feels really strong. Like it's all kind of metal. It feels really sturdy. The faders are a good range. I love the no screen workflow, which is only maybe a personal preference. And then you get, you know, the elephant in the room really is the 6-voice polyphony versus the 4-voice polyphony of these guys. Obviously 6-voice on the OG 106. Only 4-voice in the boutiques, which I never really understood from a digital side. Why limit it to 4 voices? Especially when it's still the 06 in the name. You know, what are you going to do? That's a Roland question. But for me, the Nymphes, especially because I got mine secondhand for cheaper than, say, this would go for. Maybe I got lucky, but I think they're comparable in price depending on where you look, especially if you're going secondhand. But form factor, 6 voices, you lose out on the chorus, which is a big one. But like I pointed out, the Zoom does a decent job. If you want chorus delays, reverbs, you can stack them all and have kind of a facsimile of that multi-effect kind of sound set. But you can do a lot more than just Juno with this, which is something I'll get into at some point. If you're interested, I could do a comparison to the Poly 6, for instance, because similar age of analog synth architecture that this can kind of do. And the Poly 6 has the ensemble effect as its real secret weapon. But, you know, can I get there with a Nymphes plus a Zoom? So in any case, you know, pros, cons for me. The cons might be the shift menu can be a bit finicky depending on, you know, how you want the navigation of the presets. You know, you've got to kind of scroll through them all. And changing the modes, unison to poly, is something I like to do sometimes on the fly in a performance. And in order to change the modes, you have to scroll through all the modes. So you can't just skip to one, which can be a bit jarring. If you need to go from, say, poly to duo, you've got to skip through all the unisons and the tri mode. So you're kind of maybe jarring the sound a little bit to get there if you're doing it live. But then, like I said, you get 2 ADSRs, 2 LFOs, you get the reverb, which, you know, for better or worse. And there's some under the hood control, MIDI control. The MIDI implementation on all these guys, the modern ones, I think is pretty good. I think Roland updated the original boutiques to have better MIDI. And so you're going to get those modern features there, no problem. And there are all kinds of like online third-party editors and patch storage things for the Nymphes. And I think even the Junos, I think they have their own that you can get online as well. So, you know, pros and cons, that's a bit for each. So if I'm talking about which ones am I going to keep, which ones do I think you should get? Let's get into some darker tones there. I'm tired of the white keys. Okay, so obviously I'm keeping my 106. That's not going anywhere. But, you know, with the prices going up day by day, sometimes I do wonder, is it time to part with? Because it doesn't get used as much as it used to, given the smaller options I have and the portable rig I have. But one of the big pros of this guy is in a capitalist negative, it's the investment part of it. Because the things like 106, Poly 6, certain vintage synths like that, they just keep going up. So I've got this for basically peanuts comparatively to today's prices. I've kept it in good shape over the years, and if I continue to do so, it just keeps seeming to go up in value no matter what clones and boutique versions are on the market. So, maybe that's something to consider. If you see one for cheap, I'd jump on it, as long as you are aware of the potential maintenance issues and voice problems and fixes that you might have to do. There's still some stuff I want to do to this one, for instance. But so I'm keeping this one for sure. And if I'd say if you see one for a good deal, like under $1,000 these days is a good deal, depending on the condition, you might want to jump on it if this is the sound you need. But if you're looking for something portable and you don't care about vintage, of these options, personally, I keep the Nymphes for sure, because I just love the sonic capabilities, the 6-voice architecture, all the extra bonus sound design features. But I'd say the 106 or the JU-06A is probably my favorite of Roland boutiques at the moment. It's the one I find most usable. It's the one I find to sound the best. It's got the ARP, it's got delay, it's got the choruses, it's got the 60 mode. So if you can get that for a decent second market price, I would say jump on it. It's great for a portable rig. I don't know that I would buy it new in store. That's just me. I like to go, obviously there's a lot of gear that comes in and out of this room, whether I'm trading it, repairing it, or buying it and letting it go down the road. So, but this one to me, I think would be, if you're just a Juno purist and you just want to have something that matches your 106 or 60 and you don't want to take this out on the road anymore, I think they nailed it with the 06A, and the extra features really make it a lot of fun for a portable rig. That puts the 06 at a disadvantage. I never like the iPhoneization of the iterative units. Like we got the 06, then we got the 06A, or we're going to get the 06A, B, C, whatever. I hope not, because they seem to have done a good job with this one. But the benefit here, like I said already, cheaper. You're going to get one of these cheaper. Personally, this is the one that's probably going to go for me. I probably won't be keeping it. May not keep this guy long term. Nymphes is staying. 106 is staying. But the 06 original is going for sure for me, probably. I'd look for a good trade option or a local deal on letting it go. I just don't need this many Junos. Maybe you do. Maybe that's a subject for another video. How many Junos does one person need? Do I need more? But let me know. And thanks for sticking around this long if you've made it. Hopefully this was interesting for you at least. If not, it was fun for me to do. So in any case, I've got some music coming out soon, working on some new stuff. There's all kinds of fun toys in here I want to do songs with and make videos on. So stick around if you're into that sort of stuff, and I'll have more. But yeah, leave a comment and we can figure out what I should do next.